Before the pyramids, before writing, before humans even learned to farm, ancient people moved stones weighing over 10 tons, carved them with impossible precision, and built structures that modern engineers still can't explain. No metal tools, no wheels, no cranes. So how did they do it? And why does it make our advanced civilization look like we're missing something? In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt was surveying a hill in southeastern Turkey. Local shepherds had been finding weird stones for years. What he uncovered would rewrite everything we thought we knew about human history, and it's called Göbekli Tepe. Here's what makes this insane. Göbekli Tepe was built around 9600 BCE, that's 11,600 years ago. To put that in perspective, this site is older than Stonehenge by 6,000 years. It's older than the pyramids by 7,000 years. When the Egyptians were building their monuments, Göbekli Tepe had already been buried and forgotten for 7,000 years. The site consists of massive T-shaped pillars, some standing over 18 feet tall and weighing more than 10 tons each. And remember, this was built by hunter-gatherers who supposedly didn't have agriculture, didn't live in permanent settlements, and definitely didn't have metal tools. But here's where it gets weird. These pillars aren't just big rocks. They're covered in intricate carvings, foxes, vultures, scorpions, snakes, carved with a level of precision that shouldn't be possible with primitive stone tools. The detail work is insane. We're talking clean lines, smooth surfaces, and three-dimensional relief work. Now let's talk about the engineering problem. Each of these 10-ton pillars had to be quarried from limestone bedrock, carved, transported up to a quarter mile, and then erected perfectly upright. Modern construction crews use cranes, hydraulics, and steel cables for this kind of work. These people had, what? Rope? Maybe? Archaeologists found the quarries where these stones came from, and get this, there's a pillar still there, partially cut from the bedrock but never finished. It's 23 feet long and would have weighed about 50 tons. They were attempting to move stones that big, with Stone Age technology. So how did they move them? The honest answer is, we don't really know. The going theory involves wooden rollers, rope, and hundreds of people pulling together. But here's the thing, that would require an organized workforce, planning, and a food surplus to feed all those workers, things we thought didn't exist yet. Think about what it takes to build something like this. You need architects to plan the design, engineers to solve the movement problems, workers who need to be fed daily, a system to organize hundreds, maybe thousands of people. This isn't a small tribe building a hut. This is civilization-level organization, supposedly 6,000 years before civilization. Now let's jump forward several thousand years to ancient Egypt. The pyramids are famous, sure, but what's not famous is just how precisely they were built. And I'm not talking pretty good for ancient times. I'm talking precision that would be impressive even by modern standards. The blocks in the Great Pyramid fit together so tightly that you can't slip a piece of paper between them. We're talking about stones weighing 2.5 tons each, fitted together with gaps of just half a millimeter. There are 2.3 million of these blocks in the Great Pyramid. That's not luck, that's precision engineering. But it gets crazier. The king's chamber inside the pyramid is made of granite, red granite transported from Aswan, which is 500 miles away. These granite blocks weigh up to 80 tons each, and they're cut and fitted with the same impossible precision. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. According to mainstream archaeology, the Egyptians cut this granite using copper tools. There's just one problem. Copper is softer than granite. It's like trying to cut steel with a butter knife. It doesn't work. You can test this yourself. Take a copper chisel to granite and see how far you get. Spoiler, nowhere. Modern researchers have tried to replicate Egyptian stone cutting with copper tools and ancient techniques. The results? It's incredibly slow. The copper tools get destroyed almost immediately, and the precision the Egyptians achieved is basically impossible. Yet somehow the Egyptians cut millions of these blocks. Then there are the drill cores. The Egyptians drilled perfectly circular holes into solid granite, and these holes show spiral grooves that indicate the drill was cutting through granite at a rate that would require hundreds of pounds of pressure. Some experts say the drill marks suggest feed rates that our modern diamond-tipped drills barely match. Let's talk about obelisks. The ancient Egyptians carved single pieces of granite into obelisks weighing hundreds of tons. There's an unfinished one still in the Aswan quarry that would have weighed 1,200 tons. That's 2.4 million pounds. in one solid piece, and they plan to transport it 500 miles down the Nile. To give you perspective, the largest modern mobile cranes max out at around 220 tons. The ancient Egyptians were moving stones that weighed 5 times more than that. And they weren't just moving them, they were standing them upright, placing them on pedestals, and positioning them with perfect accuracy. But if you think the Egyptians were impressive, wait until you hear about Baalbek in Lebanon. This Roman temple site sits on top of a foundation that makes Egyptian blocks look like children's toys. We're talking about stones so big that they defy explanation. At the base of the temple are 3 stones known as the trilithon. Each one weighs approximately 800 tons. That's 1.6 million pounds per stone. They're about 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet thick, and they're fitted together so precisely that you can barely see the seams. In a nearby quarry sits the stone of the pregnant woman, a block that was cut but never moved. It weighs an estimated 1,000 tons, and right next to it is an even larger stone that would have weighed 1,650 tons, making it the largest carved stone block in the world. The question is, why cut stones this big if you can't move them? Here's the thing. Modern engineers say there's no way to move stones this heavy without advanced equipment. The largest land vehicle ever built is NASA's Crawler transporter, which carries the space shuttle. It can carry about 8,000 tons, but it weighs 2,700 tons itself, has tank treads, and moves at 1 mile per hour on a specially built roadway. The official explanation is that the Romans moved these stones using manpower, wooden rollers, and bronze tools. But here's the problem. There's no historical record of how they did it. No Roman engineer wrote it down. No carved relief shows the technique. And modern engineers who've analyzed it say the official explanation is basically impossible. Now let's fly to Bolivia and talk about Puma Punku. This site has some of the most precisely cut stones on Earth. We're talking perfectly flat surfaces, exact 90-degree angles, and complex interlocking shapes that look like they came from a machine shop. And this was supposedly built around 600 CE by people with bronze chisels. The flatness of these stones is insane. Some surfaces are flat to within a few microns, that's millionths of a meter. To achieve that today, we use precision grinding equipment and laser measurement tools. These stones are so flat and smooth that when you place 2 together, they create a suction seal. That's precision machining, not hand carving. And here's another problem. Puma Punku sits at 12,800 feet above sea level in the Bolivian Altiplano. The nearest quarry for the red sandstone used in construction is 10 miles away. For the andesite stones, the really big ones weighing up to 130 tons, the quarry is across Lake Titicaca, 50 miles away. How do you transport 130-ton blocks across mountains and lakes? Some researchers propose that ancient civilizations had technology that we've lost or don't understand. Not necessarily electric drills or modern machines, but perhaps techniques involving sound, vibration, or chemical processes that we haven't rediscovered. It sounds crazy until you look at the evidence they left behind. One controversial theory involves acoustic levitation, using sound waves to move heavy objects. This isn't science fiction. We can levitate small objects with sound today. Some researchers point to ancient texts from Tibet, India, and Egypt that describe using sound to move stones. Crazy? Maybe. But so is moving 1,000-ton blocks with Bronze Age technology. Then there's the vitrification issue. Some ancient stone structures show signs of vitrification, where the rock surface has partially melted and fused into a glass-like state. This requires temperatures of at least 1,000 degrees Celsius. What could generate that kind of heat? And why would you need it for construction? We don't have good answers. Another theory gaining traction is geopolymer technology. The idea that some ancient stones weren't carved but were cast like concrete using a chemical mixture. French scientist Joseph Davidovits analyzed Egyptian blocks and found evidence they might be made from reconstituted limestone. If true, it would solve the precision and transportation problems, but it's still highly controversial. Here's what's fascinating. These impossible constructions appear all over the world. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the pyramids in Egypt, Baalbek in Lebanon, Puma Punku in Bolivia, the Moai of Easter Island, Sacsayhuaman in Peru. Different continents, different cultures, different time periods, but similar engineering challenges and similar mysteries about how they were built. Modern researchers have repeatedly tried to replicate ancient construction methods using only the tools and techniques that would have been available. The results? Mostly failures. When they do succeed, it requires massive teams, takes forever, and doesn't achieve anywhere near the precision of the originals. That should tell us something. The gap between what we're told ancient people could do and what they actually did is massive. The official narrative says, primitive tools, basic math, lots of manpower. The physical evidence says, precision machining, advanced engineering, organized logistics, and techniques we can't replicate. Something doesn't add up. What if our timeline of human development is wrong? What if there was an advanced civilization before the Ice Age that was wiped out by catastrophe around 12,000 years ago? A civilization that had knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering that survived in fragments, passed down to later cultures like the Egyptians and Sumerians. It's speculative, but Göbekli Tepe proves people were capable of far more, far earlier than we thought. Mainstream archaeology resists these alternative theories, and honestly for good reason. Science requires evidence, not speculation. But the problem is that the mainstream explanations don't adequately explain the physical evidence. When you can't replicate something using the proposed methods, maybe it's time to consider that the methods were different than we think. The truth is, we don't know how they did it. Göbekli Tepe remains 95% unexcavated. There could be more incredible discoveries still buried. The techniques used to move the Baalbek Stones are lost to history. The precision at Puma Punku defies explanation. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are real mysteries that real archaeologists struggle with. Maybe the real lesson here isn't about aliens or lost super-civilizations. Maybe it's that human ingenuity and determination can accomplish incredible things, even with limited resources. These ancient builders solved problems we struggle with today. They moved stones we can barely move. They achieved precision we can barely match. That should inspire us, not baffle us. We have this idea that human civilization progresses linearly, that we're always getting smarter, more capable, more advanced. But what if that's not true? What if ancient people knew things we don't? What if we've lost knowledge? The engineering at these sites suggests that maybe, just maybe, primitive isn't the right word for these civilizations. Every year, new discoveries challenge what we thought we knew. Ground-penetrating radar shows undiscovered chambers in pyramids. LiDAR reveals entire lost cities under jungle canopy. New dating techniques push timelines back thousands of years. We're just beginning to understand the true scope of ancient human achievement. Who knows what we'll find next? So the next time someone tells you that ancient people were primitive, remember these sites. Remember the 10-ton stones carved without metal. Remember the 800-ton blocks moved without cranes. Remember the precision that rivals modern machining. These ancient megaprojects don't just challenge our understanding of history, they prove that human beings have always been capable of the extraordinary. We just forgot how we did it. If this blew your mind, hit that subscribe button, because human history is way stranger and more impressive than we've been taught. Thanks for watching.